Let me describe your morning to you before you even tell me about it. It's somewhere around 6:30, maybe 7. The alarm goes off. Your eyes aren't even open yet, but your throat already knows the day has started. That thick, heavy feeling sitting right at the back, low and persistent. You clear it once, it doesn't work. You clear it again. Still there. You get up, you drink some water, maybe it eases for 20 minutes, and then it's back, quietly sitting with you for the rest of the day like it never left. Now here's the question I ask almost every patient who describes this to me. How long has this been happening? And almost every single time they pause, they genuinely can't pinpoint it. It didn't arrive one day. It crept in slowly, so slowly that at some point it stopped feeling like a symptom and just started feeling like part of who they are now. That's exactly what I want to unpack with you today, because the people dealing with this have almost always been given the least useful explanation possible. I've spent close to 20 years working in internal medicine with a strong focus on adults over 50, and one of the most common complaints that crosses my desk is this exact one. That constant coating, that thickness, that feeling like something is always sitting at the back of your throat. And the advice most people get before they ever reach someone like me usually sounds like this. Just drink more water. That's not an explanation. That's a shrug, dressed up as medical advice, and you deserve more than that. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 real, research-backed reasons this happens in adults, specifically over the age of 55. And I'm going to do something most videos on this subject skip entirely. I'm going to show you how these causes overlap and disguise themselves as each other, which is exactly why so many people try one fix, it fails, and they assume nothing will ever work. Before we start, I want to ask you something. Has any doctor, pharmacist, or specialist ever actually sat down and explained to you why this is happening? Just type yes or no below. I read every comment, and your answer tells me a lot about why you clicked on this video today. None of the 5 causes will make sense without this foundation, so let's start here. Your body produces somewhere between 1 and 2 liters of mucus a day. You don't notice almost any of it because you swallow it reflexively, dozens of times an hour, without ever registering it's happening. This is completely normal. Mucus isn't the enemy here. It's a protective feature built into your airway, trapping dust, bacteria, and airborne particles before they travel further into your lungs, while keeping the delicate tissue lining your throat moist and intact. So if mucus production isn't the problem, what is? Clearance. Your airway is lined with microscopic hair-like structures called cilia. They beat in a constant coordinated rhythm, millions of tiny movements every minute, sweeping mucus up and out before it has any chance to build up. In a 30-year-old, this system works so efficiently, you never feel it happening. Mucus is made, mucus is cleared, end of story. Here's what changes with age. Research consistently shows that ciliary beat frequency slows down measurably as we get older. That clearance system that used to work in seconds now takes hours. Mucus that would have disappeared before you ever noticed it at 40 can sit, thicken, and accumulate at 65. And this single fact changes everything about how we need to think about the 5 causes coming up. Any trigger that nudges your body toward extra mucus production is going to land harder and stay longer than it would have 20 years ago. Not because something is wrong with you specifically, but because the physiology underneath you has genuinely shifted. Before we move into the 5 causes, drop your name and your age in the comments. I want to know who's actually here with me today. The first cause is the one I consider the most overlooked, because most people rule it out immediately without realizing they're ruling out the wrong thing. It's called laryngopharyngeal reflux, or LPR for short. And before you decide this doesn't apply to you because you've never had heartburn, stay with me, because that exact assumption is the whole problem. Classic acid reflux comes with a warning sign, that burning sensation in your chest after a meal. LPR is different in one critical way. There's no burning, no obvious digestive discomfort at all, which is exactly why it slips past people, sometimes for years. Here's the mechanism. At the junction between your stomach and esophagus sits a muscular valve, whose entire job is staying shut after you eat. So stomach acid stays exactly where it belongs. As we age, the muscle tone of that valve naturally weakens. This is well documented in research on the aging digestive system. When it doesn't close completely, acid can travel upward, past the esophagus, all the way into the throat and voice box, often while you're asleep, when gravity is no longer helping keep it down. And here's the part that makes this so persistent. Your throat tissue isn't built to handle acid the way your stomach and esophagus are. Even a tiny trace touching your throat triggers an immediate defensive response. Your body floods the area with thick protective mucus. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. But when this happens quietly, night after night, you wake up every morning with that same heaviness and no idea why, because there was never any burning to warn you. Clinical literature on LPR is striking here. In a significant share of diagnosed cases, patients report zero classic heartburn symptoms at all. Just the throat symptoms, the morning roughness, the constant urge to clear. Let me tell you about a patient. A retired accountant named Robert, 68 years old. He'd been dealing with this exact morning heaviness for close to 3 years. Tried allergy pills, switched pillows, bought an air purifier, nothing changed. When we walked through his evening routine, the answer was sitting right there. Dinner most nights around 8:15, asleep by 9:30. Barely an hour of upright time between his last bite and lying flat. We shifted his dinner earlier before 7 post-meridiem and made one positional change I'll walk you through in the action plan. Within about 2 weeks, his mornings were noticeably different. We never touched his throat directly. We fixed what was happening while he slept. Ask yourself honestly, is your throat worse in the morning than later in the day? Does it get worse when you lean forward or lie down? Those are the signatures of exactly what we're talking about. If the first cause caught you off guard, this second one might genuinely frustrate you because you're exposed to it for hours every single day without realizing it. When people think about environmental triggers for throat irritation, they almost always think outdoors, pollen, pollution, seasonal shifts. Almost nobody thinks about the air circulating inside their own house, and the data here is honestly surprising. The Environmental Protection Agency has documented that indoor air is routinely 2 to 5 times more polluted than the air outside, sometimes considerably more. Your home isn't a clean sanctuary. It's a semi-sealed space that concentrates whatever's floating around in it. Dust mites build up in carpets, mattresses, and upholstered furniture. HVAC systems that haven't been serviced in a while quietly circulate fine dust and allergens through your living space, hour after hour. In colder months, heating systems dry the air out significantly, and dry air directly irritates your nasal and throat lining. Your body responds the only way it knows how, by producing more protective mucus. You're not sick. Your airway is just trying to stay moist in an environment working against it. Then there's a category almost nobody connects to this: scented candles, plug-in air fresheners, fabric softeners, chemical cleaning sprays. These release compounds that, with regular exposure, create a low, ongoing irritation in your airway. Not dramatic, never announcing itself, just quietly keeping mucus production elevated day after day. Here's why this hits this age group especially hard. Retirement usually means more hours spent at home. More hours at home means more sustained exposure to whatever's actually in that air. If your symptoms have been creeping up gradually over the past few years, it might track a lot more closely with how much time you're spending indoors than with age itself. If this is landing for you, type the number 2 below so I know you're still with me. This third cause tends to get the strongest reaction in my consultations, because once I explain it, it's obvious, and yet almost nobody makes the connection on their own. Because we rarely question a medication we've been taking faithfully for months or years. The main category here is ACE inhibitors, a widely prescribed class of blood pressure medications. You might recognize names like lisinopril, enalapril, or ramipril. They're genuinely effective and serve an important cardiovascular purpose, but they carry a well-documented class-wide side effect directly relevant to what we're discussing. ACE inhibitors block the enzyme that converts angiotensin I into angiotensin II. As a side effect of that mechanism, a compound called bradykinin builds up in your system. In a meaningful percentage of people taking these medications, somewhere in the range documented across peer-reviewed studies, that buildup causes ongoing throat irritation, a persistent urge to clear, a sensation of mucus that just won't resolve, and sometimes a dry cough that doesn't seem to come from anywhere. This isn't an allergic reaction. It's a pharmacological consequence of exactly how the drug works. and your airway happens to be sensitive to it. Here's the detail that makes this connection so easy to miss. This side effect rarely shows up right away. It can take weeks, sometimes months to appear. So the person who started their medication 10 months ago and noticed their throat changing 7 months in never links the two. The gap feels too wide to be related. But that delayed onset is exactly the pattern described in the research. And studies show older adults have notably higher odds of experiencing this than younger patients on the same medication. There's a second category worth mentioning too: long-term regular antihistamine use. A lot of people take over-the-counter antihistamines assuming that if allergies are part of the picture, the antihistamine must be helping across the board. Short-term, they do dry things out. But with prolonged regular use, your nasal lining can develop a rebound effect, overproducing mucus to compensate for the suppression. What you end up with is mucus that's thicker and stickier than what you started with. If you take blood pressure medication and don't know whether it falls into the ACE inhibitor category, your pharmacist can answer that for you in under a minute. If it does, it's worth a specific conversation with your doctor about whether an ARB, an angiotensin receptor blocker, could achieve the same result without this particular side effect. If this is giving you some clarity, type the word clarity below. That's genuinely the goal of this conversation. Almost every one of you has heard some version of drink more water for this exact symptom, but almost nobody has had the actual connection explained clearly. So let's do that properly. Your mucus is roughly 95% water. That's not a rough estimate. That's the composition of healthy, well-hydrated airway mucus. And how thin or thick that mucus is depends directly and almost immediately on the hydration state of the tissue producing it. When you're properly hydrated, mucus stays thin and mobile. It flows. It gets swept along efficiently by that ciliary system we talked about earlier, cleared before you ever notice it. When you're mildly dehydrated, not severely, not dangerously, just slightly below where you should be, that same mucus thickens. It becomes sticky. It resists the clearance system that's already working less efficiently with age, and it clings right at the back of your throat exactly where you feel it. Here's the piece of aging physiology that turns this from a casual reminder into something that actually matters. Research in exercise and geriatric medicine confirms that your thirst mechanism becomes significantly less reliable as you age. A younger adult feels thirsty at fairly mild dehydration levels, an early warning that kicks in well before anything meaningful happens. In adults over 60, that early warning system is considerably blunted. You can be dehydrated enough to visibly thicken your mucus and worsen your morning symptoms without feeling thirsty at all. Practically, this means waiting for thirst to tell you to drink puts you behind by definition. You're already in the state that's thickening your mucus before your body even flags it. Scheduled, deliberate hydration through the day, not reactive drinking triggered by thirst, is what your physiology genuinely calls for. A commonly cited clinical target is around 30 milliliters per kilogram of body weight daily. From all fluid sources? Water, herbal tea, soup, water-rich foods included. Consistency across the day matters more than trying to catch up with a big glass in the evening. If you're still with me, type the number 4 below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is a good moment to do that. I want to approach this last cause carefully because I know how it can sound at first, and I want to be precise. I'm not saying this is in your head. I'm saying your nervous system is a physical, biological system with direct, measurable connections to your airway. And those connections are active in ways very few people your age have ever had explained to them. Here's the mechanism. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in your body, runs from your brainstem through your chest and into your abdomen. It directly connects to your airway, your heart, and your digestive system, and it's the primary pathway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest and recovery. Under sustained chronic stress, not necessarily dramatic or obvious stress, but the quiet, ongoing kind so many older adults carry without naming it, the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems shifts. When that balance shifts, the signaling along the vagus nerve to your airway changes in ways that directly influence mucus production. Research in respiratory physiology describes something called neurogenic airway inflammation, where nerve-released chemical signals, triggered by sustained autonomic imbalance, cause airway tissue to increase mucus gland activity. On top of that, chronically elevated cortisol, a reliable byproduct of prolonged stress, disrupts mast cells lining your airway. Disrupted mast cells release histamine and inflammatory signals that tell your mucus glands to ramp up output even further. This matters specifically for people your age because chronic stress often looks completely different than what younger people picture. It's the quieter, sustained kind: health worries, disrupted sleep, the loss of people close to you, financial uncertainty, ongoing responsibility for others. From your nervous system's point of view, that sustained low-grade activation is still stress, and your airway is responding to it biochemically, whether or not you describe yourself as stressed. The practical takeaway here is that addressing this symptom through behavior and environment alone, without any attention to nervous system regulation, leaves a real gap for a meaningful number of people. For some of you watching, this might genuinely be the most important piece of everything I've covered today. Before the action plan, I need a moment that matters, and I don't want to rush past it. The overwhelming majority of persistent throat mucus in adults over 55 is exactly what we've been discussing: specific, identifiable, and manageable. But some throat symptoms in this age group need prompt medical evaluation, not a home routine. Please see your doctor without delay if you notice mucus that's persistently tinged with blood, even faintly; difficulty swallowing that's gradually getting worse over weeks; unexplained weight loss alongside your throat symptoms; new swelling in your neck that you can see or feel; or a change in your voice that isn't improving over time. None of these are reasons to panic. All of them are reasons to get checked promptly. Please don't try to manage those particular signs on your own. Everything we've covered turns into something you can actually start tonight. Step 1. Stop eating at least 3 hours before lying down. This one change reduces the opportunity for acid to reach your throat more than almost anything else on this list. Step 2. Raise the head of your bed. Use a firm wedge under the mattress or under the headboard legs, not extra pillows stacked under your head, which just bends your neck without solving anything. A gentle, consistent incline works with gravity across your full 8 hours of sleep. Step 3. Audit your indoor air. Change your HVAC filter this week if it's overdue. Consider a HEPA air purifier for your bedroom specifically, since you spend 8 straight hours breathing whatever's in that room. Try a 2-week break from scented candles and chemical sprays. Add a humidifier during heating season, aiming for indoor humidity between 40 and 60%. Step 4. Review your medication list with your doctor. If you're on a blood pressure medication, ask your pharmacist directly whether it's an ACE inhibitor. Write down when your throat symptoms started relative to when the medication began and bring that timeline to your appointment. Step 5. Rehydrate deliberately, not reactively. Start each morning with a glass or 2 of warm water before coffee. Set reminders through the day rather than waiting to feel thirsty. Add water-rich foods regularly: soups, cucumber, watermelon, herbal teas. Step 6. Build a short daily breathing practice. Slow, diaphragmatic breathing activates your parasympathetic system and lowers circulating cortisol. You don't need a class or an app. 5 to 10 minutes each morning. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold briefly, exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 to 8 counts. That extended exhale is what specifically triggers the calming response. It costs nothing, and it compounds over weeks. Here's what I want you to leave with today. The mucus sitting at the back of your throat has a reason. And honestly, it probably has more than one, working together in a way that makes each one harder to identify on its own. Silent acid creeping up while you sleep, with no heartburn to warn you. The air inside your own home creating quiet, sustained irritation. A medication you've taken faithfully for months that nobody ever connected to your throat. Mild dehydration sitting just below the point where you'd actually feel thirsty. And a nervous system carrying more sustained stress than you'd consciously label as stress. None of this means you're stuck accepting a life of constant throat clearing. Each of these has a specific, practical, evidence-based response. And not one of the first steps requires a specialist or a prescription. It requires understanding what's actually happening and treating your symptoms as a signal worth listening to, not a nuisance to just work around. If anyone has ever told you this is simply what getting older looks like, I hope today gave you a genuinely different picture. I've got a follow-up video coming that goes deeper into what your body does overnight and how that nighttime physiology quietly drives some of the most misunderstood complaints I hear from people your age. If your mornings have been shaped by this symptom, that one is going to matter to you directly. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch it the moment it's live. If today's video gave you something genuinely useful, do one thing for me. Share it with someone in your life who's been quietly dealing with this exact same thing. It might be the first real explanation they've ever gotten about their own body. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these 5 causes had nobody ever explained to you before? And how long have you personally been dealing with this? I read every comment, and this conversation matters.